It's the SNL Hall of Fame podcast with chief conversationalist Bill Kenney, featuring Matt Ardill, with special guest Mike Murray. And now, curator of the hall, your host, JD.
Thank you so much, Kirk Lane. It is an absolute thrill to be here with you today at the SNL Hall of Fame in the SNL Hall of Fame podcast. My name is JD, and it is just another day here in the hall. No, it's not. It's a nomination day. And that means, well, before anything, wipe those feet. The SNL Hall of Fame is a weekly affair where each episode we take a deep dive into the career of a former cast member, host, musical guest, or writer, and add them to the ballot for your consideration. Once the nominees have been announced, we turn to you, the listener, to help decide who will be enshrined for perpetuity inside the hall. And that's how we play the game. It's just that simple. Listen, I am wearing a red tracksuit today and a headband and some wristbands. I've got cardboard under my arm and
Hey, I'm breakdancing my way down the hallway to meet with Mixmaster Matt on this hip-hop day here in the Hall of Fame. Oh, maestro.
Yo. Hey, JD. Care to join me between these two ferns?
Nicely played. We're talking about Zach Galifianakis today.
Yeah. Zach is 5'7", born on October 1st, 1969. So we share a birthday just, 6 years apart. So that's pretty well. No, sorry. October 1st, 1969. So we share a birthday 5 years apart, which I did not know until recently. And hey, good things come on October 1st.
Okay.
He was born in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina. He attended Wilkes Central High School, Wilkes Community College, and North Carolina State University, graduating with a degree in communications. While attending school, he worked at a public access station and taught waltz classes, which is where he met Mary J. Blige. So, yeah, just you never know who you're going to meet while teaching waltz classes.
No.
He is the cousin of Washington Post cartoonist Nick Galifianakis, and he is named after his uncle, who was a congressman. He has 88 acting credits, 13 producer credits, 15 writing credits, as well as 7 soundtrack credits, including an additional credit as a composer, which is not surprising because he's a pretty talented pianist in his own right. He has received 2 Primetime Emmys, 2 SAG Awards, and a Critics' Movie Choice Award. He started his career with a road trip in the 90s, driving from New York to California, and as far as I know, he still has that car.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
He kept it for memory. He seems like a sentimental guy,
Oh.
But during his time as a stand-up, he toured with Patton Oswalt, Brian Posehn, and Maria Bamford, which was filmed as part of a highly recommend this documentary and the special Comedians of Comedy. It's a great time capsule of the formative years of what became labeled alt comedy and some of those incredible early talents who helped define it. And part of it features a trip to Toronto. So yeah. Now, shortly after the film, he recorded his special at the Venerable Purple Onion, which is one of the first comedy specials on Netflix. And it's the same venue that was used by the Smothers Brothers to record their album. And
Did not know that.
Robin Williams would also record there as well. Now, his first film role was in the independent film Visioneers in 2008. He was then part of a TV ad campaign by Tim and Eric, parodying the Golden Girls, advertising Absolute Vodka, which I now have to track down. He partnered with Scott Aukerman of Mr. Show fame to create a comedy, Between Two Ferns, where he interviewed everyone from Carrot Top to President Obama And he also mastered the art of cringe, because to this day, I can't watch that show because he is so painful to watch. It's comedy gold, but cringe comedy gets me every time. Now, while he stars in the film The Hangover, he is in fact leading a sober life. His other big project was Baskets, the story of an up-and-coming clown, which is also a study in arch cringe, but has a masterful performance by Louis Anderson as his mom. He lists his main comedy inspirations as his Greek family, because he said they know how to make people laugh. And he further says he observed it because he thought it was special. He thought, wow, could I figure out how they do that for a living? Because my father would tell me, just do something you love. Now, he worked to raise money for women's health causes with Sarah Silverman, and is married to Canadian charity worker. And one of his residents is in BC on a small private island. He is quoted as saying, "It's not good for comedy to be like, thanks for liking me. Being popular is poison. My mom and dad are like, you're not enjoying any of this. I say, it's your fault for not raising me to be superficial."
Oh, Zach Galifianakis. Yeah, definitely a talent in his own right. I've enjoyed most of his work. I love Purple Onion. Great stuff. And we're going to now hear more about his career from Bill Kenney and Mike Murray. If they get their game of Scrabble done in time. Bill, stop cheating.
Yes, thank you, JD and Matt. Welcome into the conversation. My name is Bill Kenney, and our nominee today is one of the great comic minds of the last 20 years, Zach Galifianakis. And I'm so thrilled to be joined by the guru, the genius, if you will, of By the Numbers on the Saturday Night Network, but more importantly, my good friend, Mike Murray. Mike, how are you?
I'm great, Bill. I'm so happy to be here with you at the helm. I feel like I've said many times on my own program that Thomas Senna, Bill Kenney, two of my favorite people to ever have on my show. So to be on his show a couple times and to be on your show is quite the honor. And by the way, a little bit bold, a little bit brave for you to have the Boston Irish guy on your show on St. Paddy's Day weekend. So God bless you, Bill.
I had to do it, Mike. Yeah, that's the way the ball bounced, but so happy to have you. Mike, you've been doing such great work, as I always tell you, over at the Saturday Night Network. What's going on over there? And tell the people who haven't watched you why they should be.
Well, thanks, Bill. As I mentioned, you're one of my favorite guests to be on that show. So if you're a fan of BK, come on over to BTN, SNL By the Numbers, show weekly on the Saturday Network, Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern, following a live show. So we do weekly numbers, weekly segments on that week, and kind of a macro look at SNL history, because as I go forward, I get so much stats on everybody. And looking back, people come back in the show. We saw Mike Myers come back, Dana Carvey, Spade, Sandler, Rock, everybody. So we do a lot of context back and forth with that. But recently, I had the By the Numbers show of all By the Numbers shows, because we covered SNL 50. So it took me many, many late nights to get the screen time stats for that show. And what we do is I record screen time for everybody that appears on SNL, and I put it into an algorithm and get one number to measure impact of that week. So it's called the Power Ranking. And it's just all fun stats. So if you're a sports fan, if you're an SNL fan, it's really like the sports talk radio of SNL.
It really is. And I can remember, I don't usually go back and watch shows. I'll watch them immediately after I'm on them, but I don't usually go back and watch stuff from the beginning. But I vividly remember being on with our friend John Schneider, creator of the Saturday Night Network. And you weren't on. He was showing us the statistics for the very first time, Andy Hoagland, our friend, and myself, and just being blown away, not knowing who this man behind the curtain was. And to be here 5 years later and to be such a good friend is an honor. And I got to say, Mike, I shouted this out on your show. You also were shouted out on Lonely Island podcast with Seth Meyers. They didn't call you out by name, which I'm still writing angry letters, but they brought up the fact that you had done screen time, questioned whether or not you had used a stopwatch or guests, and was ridiculous. Of course, you're using a stopwatch, and it was just such a nice moment, and to have you kind of get some accolades for all the hard work that you do was really nice.
Yeah, that was fun. I got a lot of text messages that Monday morning or whenever that show came out. It's like, check out the Lonely Island Seth Meyers podcast. And right at the top of that show, Seth Meyers is like, I'm looking at the SNL 50 screen time numbers. I'm on Instagram. And he's like, oh, he's on the SNN page. So that was pretty fun to see Andy, Yorm, and Keeve, guess who got the most screen time. I felt like it was a little by the numbers mini right there in the bonus show.
Yeah, and maybe you can get them on your show too. Let's fingers crossed, right?
Anything's possible. I mean, look at what we've seen with how everything's grown. So
that's right.
We'll see.
That's right. So as I said, we're talking about Zach Galifianakis to kind of set the stage a little bit. Zach started in really small parts in mediocre films around 99. If you don't remember his, unbelievable turns as the bus stop man or the pathetic guy, go back and watch those movies. Look them up on IMDb and see if you can find an old VHS copy. But it doesn't take really long for him to kind of get his foot in the door comedically. He's just such a genius. I can remember watching him on Late World with Zach, starting around 2002 with VH1. He comes out with Between Two Ferns in around 2008. But his huge break is the Hangover series, and that's when he really becomes a known entity to the entire world. Mike, where did you come in on the Zach Galifianakis train?
I have a very specific story. This was 2006, so I'm a young fellow at the time, and a friend of mine had the DVD of Live at the Purple Onion. So that's his stand-up. He plays the piano and has like interstitials of a character that he played of his identical twin brother Seth Galifianakis in between that. And so this is at my time where I was like really getting into Norm Macdonald and Mitch Hedberg, Stephen Wright, local Boston guy, shout out to him. And it was very much like that. Just the one-liners, the kind of, his whole style was really appealing to me. So I saw that, and I think that might have been a Funny or Die entity as well. But my friend had the DVD, had never heard his name before that. So we watched that, I think, many times in his like side bedroom and played mini hockey on the floor and stuff. So mixed in with, I think, the Dana Carvey best of and the Louis Anderson stand up. So that was like the 3 DVDs. That was the new one. And we got really into Zach. And then Between Two Ferns, I think a lot of people in my circle got into that. And then, of course, The Hangover, which was, I think, the second R-rated movie I might have went to. And I told the story before because I did do an episode with Emma Stone for this podcast. And I got to tell Emma that when I met her was that I got to sneak into Superbad in 2007 as a 14-year-old. No problems there. But at The Hangover, saw a matinee and they ID'd us. So that was weird because that was just funny because we were the only people in the theater and just saw The Hangover, and been a Zach fan ever since. And actually, Bill, I did bring some artifacts from the Mike Murray archives that I do want to share with you to maybe shed some light on my love for Zach. As a kid, I was a big autograph hound. That's a trait I inherited from my grandfather. So I used to send fan mail to people. So I did send to Zach back in the day, and he was not the most responsive guy, but he would respond to some people. So I sent him a letter just roasting him like every line was like a really backhanded compliment. And he sent me back 2 signed photos. So I will show them here. This is a listening medium, but this is the first one. And it says, Mike, no one likes you. No one. Zach Galifianakis.
That is
so that's the first
fantastic.
piece. And then the second one here is he said, Mike, don't quit your gay job. Zach Galifianakis.
Oh, Mike, that makes my night. We could just end it right here. Forget it. That's so cool. I love that. It's such, as you said, the Zach brand that really fits what we're talking about here. He is such a unique talent. And I know one of the, we went to a lot of Major League Baseball games, especially when I lived in Washington, D.C., and he was there to yell play ball for one of the games. So I was so excited. Didn't even care about the game. The fact that he was there, I think it was right between Hangover 1 and 2. And it was so exciting just to be in the same area as Zach among 30,000 other people. But yeah, much the same for me, albeit at an older age, not having to worry about getting into R-rated movies when The Hangover came out. But it's a lot of the same for me too. When you find these unique comic talents, everybody has the same kind of rhythm. But when you find this unique person like a Robin Williams, a Zach Galifianakis, if you're a comedian, a comic fan, this is somebody that you're kind of gravitating towards. So I love that. And so let's get into his episodes. Mike, we'll talk right at the top here with his first one in season 35, episode 16, March 6th, 2010, with musical guest Hoobastank, or was it Vampire Weekend? I can't remember. Still a line I use to this day, but we'll get into that. So he's not really promoting anything, but as we talk about these 3 hosting gigs, it's all around The Hangover. This is much later than The Hangover, but they're all kind of related to when he's hosting. So
this was his rising star too. I mean, Hangover, May 2009, Dinner for Schmucks, July 2010.
Right.
So, of course, he's going to come back a year later, and, due date is November of 2010. So it's like he was just getting booked a lot. So this was like right when the Zach Galifianakis name was becoming known.
Yes. So what sticks out? What's the first thing you think about when you think about this first hosting gig?
Well, I was looking at the season. This is season 35. So I think the era that Zach is in, because he does host 3 times. So we're going to cover them tonight. And it is fascinating to see somebody host that many times in a short period. Brings me to like things we cover on By the Numbers with like John Mulaney, Shane Gillis, Nate Bargatze, people who come back like immediately. So, we're going to cover that next episode, but he's 40 years old. He's not, spring chicken of comedy, but that's kind of how it goes sometimes, is you kind of rise up in the stand-up ranks and get your first big break, and then you're on SNL. So this is Will Forte's final season. It's the 5th for, Sandberg, Hader, Wig. You got the rookies, Jenny Slate, Nassim Pedrad. And I want to talk about his first monologue, to be honest with you, Bill, because one of my favorite monologues I can think of, rewatching it in preparation for this show, I forgot how much I used to quote lines from this monologue. So do you have any in mind or comments on the monologue?
Absolutely. And this will be a running theme as well. I think I referenced the Hoobastank line.
I was reading on CNN.com today before the show. You know that kid that had sex with his high school teacher about a year ago? I read online today that kid died today. He died of high-fiving. He was in a high-fiving accident. We have a great show for you tonight. Hoobastank is here. No? Who is it? Vampire Weekend is here. Stay high.
It's something to this day that I will, if I don't like the musical guest that's booked or I don't want to talk about them, I'll be like, Hoobastank is here. And
I've heard you say that, Bill.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's a great line. It's not something that you really ever see anybody do. I can't think of another monologue where, as they're going in the outro, talking about we've got a great show. The musical guest is such and such. I can't think of another one like this, Mike. So that's the first line that I think of.
Yeah, breaking form. There's only a few lines in SNL that are rock solid, kind of like a reality show like Survivor. Jeff Probst used a couple of the same lines every episode. It's live from New York, and it's, ladies and gentlemen, this person, and it's, we have a great show, stick around. This person's here. So Hoobastank, which he does bring back in the second episode, and which is great. But the lines here, so I mentioned earlier that he had that special, live from the Purple Onion, and that was very much in line with this. So it was a great intro to Zach, and just had, he's sitting out at the piano, so it's a sit down, not stand up monologue. And of course, he comes up, by the way, he gets introduced, and he just immediately says, stop clapping. Yes. And he says, it's great to be back hosting Saturday Night Live for his first hosting stint. Of course, I've been in Canada opening up for Miles Davis, Kilometers Davis. My girlfriend looks a lot like Charlize Theron and a lot like Dog the Bounty Hunter. Sometimes I do something and I think that's so Raven. Other times I do something I'd be like, that's not so Raven. So that was the one bill for me that I was like, I think I used that line plagiarized for maybe 5 or 6 years after that. I was like, that was not so Raven. And no one got it, but it got a laugh probably 20% of the time.
That's a great one. I love the line that really only somebody like Zach could do. It's right after he sits at the piano and he says, I like dark comedies. That's why I like the Wayans brothers.
Yes.
You're like, oh, can we say that in 2010? Okay. But he's just so disarming and charming at the same time that you almost kind of let him go with that. Talking about going to his high school reunion, and it was weird because he was homeschooled. Couldn't figure out why he rented the limo.
Yeah. Listen to Kool and the Gang.
Yes.
The Punch Bowl.
Yes. But yeah, there's a lot of great stuff here.
It was just so strong. I mentioned earlier how it's like, he's 40 years old, getting his big break, and has this great material in the tank. And this is like such a great first hosting episode and a great first monologue, because if you did not see The Hangover, which, you'll probably be getting calls, at the election season because, you're somebody who's off the grid if you didn't see The Hangover by this point in March of 2010. But he just introduced that stand-up style. And there was a line, too, that I think he did at some point, which was like getting his car repaired and said, like, oh, you can repay us in stand-up. And he's like, oh, do you have a piano around here? And I think he used that in stand-up, and I use as a piano player myself, I love that line when I have to, pay for something. I want to be like, oh, you got a piano around here? So I did love that. And it's just off to the races from there. So do you want to pick the next sketch we talk about?
I have to bring this up because it's something that we don't ever see in modern SNL. And this is kind of what makes him so unique. It puts him in the Gary Shandling, Charles Grodin category for this is a Zach episode. So if you're going to talk about a host having their own brand, John Schneider has brought that up a lot when we talked about hosts last summer, having their own kind of stamp on an episode. The fact that he does a runner in this episode, not something we get in modern SNL very much. We get it in 2 different episodes with Zach. So the digital short where Zach drops by the set. So this is, it's pre-taped. He's wandering around. He's on the set of the Nightly News with Brian Williams. He's just kind of in the background, smiling creepily. And it just kind of goes from there, where he shows up on 30 Rock. He's on a sitcom. He's on Law and Order. He's at an 11-year-old's birthday, until it finally ends with him at Robin Williams' show in 1984. A young, bearded Zach Galifianakis sitting in the audience. Mike, what did you think of this one?
This is amazing. This is something that's, I think, honestly forgettable. So if you go back and look at it, you'll appreciate it way more now, which I did when I watched it. I remember seeing it back then. Once I put it on, I was like, oh, yeah, he did that because I knew what was coming next, which is the Today Show. When he does that, he pops back in the background after basically a full sketch. So seeing this, and I think this could be our, kind of overarching thing when we wrap up tonight, is how much he brought his brand to the show, but he plays to the backseat better than almost anyone, I think, going back SNL history, where I mentioned earlier Mulaney, Shane Gillis, and Bargatze as stand-ups who came in, and of course Mulaney had history with the show, Gillis slightly, but that he came onto the show with a unique brand, but really added his efforts to make a great show. And every sketch didn't seem like this is a Zach Galifianakis sketch. And this is the perfect example right here, because he literally is like not speaking for the most part of that digital short. It's a digital short that doesn't really feature, the Lonely Island at all.
Right.
He's literally popping in the set and transitioning Bill into today with Jenny Slate's Hoda Kotb and Wiggs Kathy Lee Gifford, which was a joy to watch again.
Oh, so great. The brilliance of Kristen Wiig, which isn't the only time we get to see her chemistry this evening with Zach Galifianakis. It goes from that digital short right into a live sketch. And even though it's a runner, you don't know it's a runner until about 3-4 minutes in.
It's a while.
Yeah, it takes a long build up, a lot of the same joke. If you remember those Today Show sketches where it's just they're drinking wine, Kathy Lee's nuts, Hoda can barely stand her. You've got the added bonus of Abby Elliott sitting at the Facebook desk, which is so 2010. But eventually we do get Zach, and he pops into screen, drops by the set, had sent an email because he's in love with Hoda, and showed up at every live taping in New York to win her love.
Yeah, Zach from New York, and he's literally in the background set waving. And so I remember watching that at the time, his first episode, being a big fan. And, I don't think I probably noticed that he had not popped in yet. So when he did, it was even all the more funny. It's rare these days we get a live sketch without the host. And they could have, ended the sketch and it would have been a fine sketch.
Yeah. So
to see Zach at the end as basically the button this is a through line from the digital short, which, we never see. The Please Don't Destroy good variant that went to the Five Timers Club.
Right.
It's the only thing I can think of in recent memory, but it made the digital short funnier because of the button. So I think that's pretty crazy. And there's one, in the third episode we'll talk about that I can't wait, but to have a runner like that. And I love to know the behind the scenes of how that's planned, because, as we know, things are cut at dress or cut for time, and they could have done the digital short without the runner. So it would have been funny, have
right.
Anthony Anderson and, on Law and Order on the street. It's great. And having, the 30 Rock cast there and, the shows he was on, but it just made it very cohesive and a memorable episode.
Yes, and he's eating Werther's candies on the 30 Rock set as they talk and discuss the sitcom. Yeah, it's really something to see. When I was rewatching these episodes, I showed a lot of this to my daughter, and her reaction. I didn't tell her what was coming. And her reaction to it was just like, oh. So that's always thrilling to see when somebody's got fresh eyes on it. I've seen that sketch, probably 25 times, but to see somebody who's younger, who wasn't around when this was happening, kind of be able to go back and look at it and laugh really speaks to the power of Zach.
Absolutely. And I'd be remiss if we didn't say that Zach's first SNL sketch was the third Vocal Checks. So they really, baptized him in to the SNL world.
I see what you did
big
there.
Time. Yeah. Because he plays a Greek Orthodox, Father Yankovic. And, we know the Vocal Checks. They're, the escalation of the kissing. And, we have Bill Hader making out with a pug. And then eventually Fred Armisen making out with Will Forte's corpse, right? So... Of course, but to have that be the first sketch of the night with Zach was definitely a vote of confidence for him, I think, for sure.
Yeah, I think, we talked about this a lot last summer, too. There is something to bringing back characters, bringing back recurring sketches for a first-time host. giving them the trust. You know, this isn't Buck Henry coming back for the 6th time and doing Samurai. You know he can do it. You know his chemistry with Belushi. This is he's not unknown. You know he's funny. You know he's going to kill it. But to put him in something, this is the third time that they had done this. So it's already established. You've got all the main third golden era people in this. And to have Zach in there is a vote of confidence. It's not the only time that we see that in this episode, right, Mike?
No, I mean, of course, we mentioned the Kathy Lee Gifford, and shout out to the bidet sketch as well, because that one was incredible. It's a 2-hander with Kristen, Andy Samberg playing the hotel manager, and the whole sketch. You think there's a second level? Nope, there's no second level. It's just them peppering him with questions about the bidet. So I won't get more into it, but that one was a hidden gem in a very old school SNL with that third golden era twist.
Would you like to see the master bedroom?
And the bidet, is it in good working order? The bidet?
I believe so, yes.
And there's a sturdiness to it. The bidet. It can accommodate a fairly heavy carriage.
I think it's a very standard bidet.
I see.
But what Bill is referring to is we have the 4th edition of What Up With That. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. And we have Paul Rudd and Frank Rich cameos here, which is pretty interesting. And Zach plays R.J. Sizzle, a flute player.
The world's greatest ambidextrous disco flute player.
Yes. Yes. So, yeah, What Up With That? Already well on its way to becoming an all-time classic sketch series on SNL. Keenan's in his 7th season. I wonder if he'll ever leave, Mike. Spoiler alert. He's already in 7th or 8th season at this point, and he's not going anywhere, right?
Which is crazy because I think that the era, as I mentioned, is so important to Zach's time here. So when we get to Hall of Fame consideration, that I think could be a very strong pro or con in his columns with voting. The funny thing is, it's like Keenan's already a vet at this point, and we're seeing peak Wig, Sudeikis, Hader, Samberg, and and then we see the kind of new era come in at the end a little bit. So that's the funny thing. But yeah, it is the 4th What Up With That. So that's pretty funny in 2010. How many times we've seen that? Of course, we have Armisen and Hader pop in, Sudeikis doing his dance, and Armisen on the saxophone. So yeah, I mean, it's a classic What Up With That. But I think for the weird guests that they bring in that are played by the host, when What Up With That starts, it's not going to be a host moment. It's going to be a Keenan moment.
Right.
That Zach really lent into it with the double flute. So that was a nice thing to look back on as well.
Yeah, I think when we see certain hosts, I think Marty Short sticks out as well when he did Jackie Rogers Jr. in What Up With That. There is that's another level of trust too, right? Because as you said, this is a Keenan piece. So it's not going to be focused solely on Zach in any way, shape, or form. But he does get quite a moment here. So we've seen him throughout this episode really kind of, as you said, fit in well with this wonderful cast. We're in a great time in the show's history. Is there anything else that you want to touch on before we hit number 2?
Just really one, because I talked so much about the Purple Onion, is that he kind of does the Seth Galifianakis character in the 10-to-1. It's this sketch pageant talk. You have Jenny Slate playing his daughter, the teen pageant girl, and his like kind of estranged / strained wife, played by Kristen Wiig, smoking cigarettes, and she throws 3 ashtrays at him during it. And Bill mentioned the chemistry is the Kristen Wiig Zach Galifianakis vehicle was a sorely missed out on for a good movie, because they are incredible together. And you could say that with Kristen Wiig, with a lot of cast and a lot of hosts, but Zach and Kristen's commitment to character is unbelievable.
Ain't anybody gonna introduce me?
Sorry, here's my wife of 13 long years, Lydia Shemp.
Pageants are a waste of money.
You are the worst.
You are, young clean.
You hooked up with it. You decided to marry it. I told you I wasn't into it. You said it didn't matter.
It does matter to me.
Oh, why don't you just go smoke more?
So he really does that character that he played in that stand-up special with the same voice and mannerisms. And he shaved his beard just for the sketch.
Right.
Which was crazy because he's known for the beard, playing Alan in The Hangover. Everyone knows him for it. And, you could blink and kind of not even realize that he shaved his beard literally between sketches just for the 10-1. So, that could have been cut. And then all of a sudden he would the Goodnights with just the mustache. But that was, talk about commitment to the bit, like Buck Henry with the Band-Aid. That was like Zach Galifianakis. All of a sudden he's, in the makeup chair getting a full beard shave for one sketch.
Yes. And to be fair, his beard probably grows back within 5 minutes. And I think he's one of those guys but yes, that is a great commitment to the bit. Yeah. You mentioned the Kristen Zach connection earlier this season, talked about Jack Black's time on the show and his chemistry with Will Ferrell and how that never became a thing, how that never became a movie. Same thing here. Like this would have been a perfect opportunity to get these two even in a buddy comedy, romantic comedy. There's a lot of ways you could have went with this. So I think we've got a really good episode here for the first one out. Then we're going to move to the second hosting gig, which follows very quickly, as you said, Mike. Season 36, episode 17, March 12th, 2011, with musical guest Jessie J. Hangover 2 is coming out in about 2 months. So he's kind of there pseudo promoting that, but it's a good opportunity to get him back in the building really quickly. And where do you want to start with his second time on the show?
Well, as mentioned, he Hollywood did make the phone call and said, we need to get Zach Galifianakis into a film with one of the greatest SNL alums. So they called Robert Downey Jr. and they had Due Date, which another movie I saw in theaters. Good film. So shout out to that movie. But yeah, so we get to, almost exactly a year later. So I mentioned Shane Gillis, we saw almost exactly a year later for his second hosting stint. Now it's season 36, and we have a monologue again where it's a little bit out of the box. And, I don't think it was maybe as strong as the first one. I think that's what we see normally with stand-up hosts who bring their best material for the first one. And second year, they don't have a full new hour or anything. But he kind of subverts that by shedding his clothes off and being in a full Little Orphan Annie outfit and using flipping the pages of the board to deliver his jokes rather than say himself. And really the dance he does is, I think, the highlight for me.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff here. And again, it starts with the kind of throwaway one-liner jokes. I never forget what my grandmother said right before she passed away. What are you doing?
I laughed out loud, Bill. I started cracking up laughing.
It's so great. A lot of exciting things coming up. Next week, I'll be at Long John Silver's. And in April, I'll be babysitting my sister's kids via Skype. RIP Skype. As we're recording this, Skype is about to go into the electronic graveyard. So a funny Skype joke in 2011 is pretty funny to hear. But yeah, when we get into the Annie stuff, there's a lot of great stuff here, as you said. Singing Tomorrow, the signs where he's talking about Dukakis 2012 is one that sticks out for me. I think that's how it ends, right?
Yeah, was that your first vote in '88?
It was not, sir. Old jokes. Come on, Mike. We were doing so well.
No, you're only 15. It's all good.
Yes, my first vote was the next time, but okay.
Yep. Bush 92.
No.
No, you were a Perot guy, I'm sure.
That's right. That's right. Dana Carvey got me.
Yeah. I mean, we can move on to. We had a The Talk sketch, which wasn't very great, I'll admit, but it was another moment of patiently waiting for Zach to save us, playing a disgruntled fan of The View in the audience. So if you have any comments on that one, I'll move on. But
yeah, I mean, it's really the only thing that props this up at all is Zach's character waiting for Barbara Walters and the girls to come out.
Yeah. So I mentioned that only to say that there's a lot of those things of, even when the writing isn't good or the sketch isn't great, that Zach Galifianakis being there does make it at least good, if not great. So I want to move on to catchphrase comedy pre-tape, just because I, again, had my biggest LOLs of my reviewing process watching this and seeing just great work from everybody. You know, we now have Jay Farrow in the cast as Dr. Velociraptor, which I lost my shit seeing that this time. Seth as Boston Powers, and Zach as Pete Airhorn Schultz. So there's another moment of Zach not having a single line, but still getting great laughs.
Yeah, I wonder, this is funny on its own. I do wonder if the joke is still there because this was based on a comedy tour that was going on. What was it? The Redneck Comedy Tour? I can't remember what it was called with Foxworthy.
They mentioned the Blue Collar and
right.
the Def Jam Comedy Kings.
Right. Yeah. So this was a big theme back then to put these super tours together with like-minded comics. I guess Bert Kreischer still kind of does that, but this was really of the moment. One of the funniest things, probably the biggest non sequitur that I still quote to this day, if I'm trying to get somebody's attention, is going Slappy Pappy. So that, hey, Slappy Pappy, what? Bobby killing it in this one with the fade haircut. And yeah, I mean, this not a lot for Zach to do here, but it's one of those great moments where his facial expressions kind of tell the whole story.
Yeah, and if you don't remember that sketch, it's literally his catchphrase is putting an air horn into a microphone at different intervals. That's his catchphrase. So you see everybody do theirs, and they keep cutting back to Zach doing that. So I want to shut that one up because it's a pre-tape that I think I forgot about, and many others probably did too. So we do have, again, as Bill said, great hosts coming back in this cast and getting a scared straight. So that's our 7th edition of, Lorenzo, played by Keenan. And this time we have Zach Galifianakis in full Hannibal Lecter, wheeled in on the board as his cousin, Larry Bernstein, who used to be the accountant for Nabisco Corporation until he started eating people.
Now, what they in here for, Chief? Well, I caught these kids breaking into the old Wigglesworth mansion.
Breaking and entering, huh? Mm-hmm. Oh, it starts with breaking and entering. Mm-hmm. Guess where it ends up?
Eating your best friend. I mean, I think that's really specific to you.
Hey! Boy, you better...
We've already done this sketch a lot, as you said. And I find it funny, going back and watching this, I hadn't seen this one in a while. And we were all so excited with the 50th. Obviously, the connection, having Will Ferrell, Eddie Murphy, and Keenan all in a sketch together. But part of that was that they were referencing their own movies and how hilarious that was. I forgot that Zach did this first. So we get Hangover references talking about instead of you'll get a baby arm in your caboose instead of a baby in a papoose. Like that's a great line. And to have a current reference for the actual host was pretty funny to see.
Yeah, and they also mentioned Mike Tyson by name, too.
Yes.
It won't be Mike Tyson. Actually, there's a good chance it'll be Mike Tyson.
Yes, right. And what happens in your ass stays in your ass.
Yep. And I was good to see Eddie Murphy on SNL 50 do that callback of the guest popping back in, because that's what he does.
Yes.
Zach comes back and says that line again. So, that's another one it's a Keenan-led sketch that Zach has great moments in, but it's, just when you look back at the lore of SNL and the eras, you can't not mention Scared Straight, and they deemed him worthy of one.
Yes. So we do get a good mix of, previously seen sketches and new stuff. So one that I want to point out, Mike, which I, again, had forgotten about, it's not easily accessible, is Noodles. I don't know if you were able to rewatch this one.
I was. This is the number one I want to talk about is Noodles, the dog.
Go with it, Mike. What was this about?
Okay, well, this is just a maybe you could call it slice of life, but maybe not in the usual way. Is having parents tell their kids in a very gentle way that the family dog has passed on. So how do we do that? We lie and lie and lie until you tell the truth that Noodles actually passed of autoerotic asphyxiation.
Yeah, so that says it all, really. I mean,
that's a sketch.
That's it. Yeah. Good night, everybody. So we have the three kids, Nassim, Bobby, and
don't remember.
I can't remember, but Nassim is kind of playing her Bedelia character, where she's calling out the parents. There's no they're saying that the dog went to live on an avocado farm. There's no avocado trees in upstate. And there's a lot of play with that, talking about doggy heaven with Aunt Rita because God thought that she looked like a dog. So, yeah, there's a lot of great stuff for leading up to what you said.
Yeah, Bobby was the third kid with the bowl cut.
Oh, I said Bobby. Who's Bobby, Nassim, and
Abby Elliott.
Abby Elliott. Thank you. But yeah, this is another great Kristen Zach piece.
Definitely.
Slice of life. Yeah, I don't know, Mike.
Well, the premise, you get the living room set and doing that. And, eventually Zach does pull out the dog porn mag that was found with Noodle's body, I guess. And another shout out to the Pugs, I guess.
Yeah.
Pugs magazine.
But all is well by the end
G's.
because he was actually just in a coma.
Yeah, Noodles lived.
Noodle lives on. Probably not today, but he lived on for another day. This is so bizarre. This is such a great piece for this era, I think, that we get to see so many great people in this, and Zach kind of downplays his role in this as he straightly reads the lines.
Definitely. Anything else on this episode? I mean, there might be the 10-1. That was pretty good Zach piece, but
we do have one other pre-tape that I think we should touch on.
Go for it.
SNL.
No, definitely.
SNL digital short. Zach looks for a new assistant.
Love this.
Love this so much. These kids, he brings in real kids, probably kids of staff members, and they play so well. He's looking for somebody to kind of take his assistant role, and he's interviewing them in only the way Zach can.
Do you currently have a job?
Well, at school I do. My job was floor sweeper, but I don't do it. So it's like you don't have any job, which is actually kind of fun. I don't like doing my job. Most jobs are boring.
What kind of music do you like?
But I have to say I do like Usher.
Usher is Justin Bieber's dad, right?
They're friends.
That's not Justin Bieber's dad?
All these things that you would do in front of a kid where the kid would call you on your bullshit, like he's talking into the stapler and the girl is like, that's not a phone. He's making fart noises and the kid won't laugh, says that's not funny.
That's not funny.
That's not funny. That kid was great. I wonder if he went on to be an actual actor because he really does a great job here.
14 years later, almost to the day. So
right, exactly. But yeah, and then we end with this really sweet kid. Zach wants to know that he could trust him if, he feels bad about himself. And the kid starts telling, Zach pretends to cry. Don't cry. You're perfect. I'm ugly.
You look perfect.
You look perfect. Everyone loves you.
This was the most we got of the Between Two Ferns.
Yes.
Zach Galifianakis. So
yes, absolutely.
We did get a position where we could have just Zach being the only, funny person, the only actor in the sketch, playing off these kids so well and doing these non sequiturs and doing all that with the kids was great. So again, a digital short that is not really an Andy Samberg joint at all. So very funny that they wanted to produce him with Zach, but just kind of give him his own template.
Yeah, I mean, Andy doesn't step away from the digital shorts very often. So the fact that he did this not once but twice for Zach is really kind of a testament to his comic abilities. So, yeah. So then we have our third episode, which takes a couple years. We get season 38, episode 19, May 4th, 2013, with musical guest of Monsters and Men. Hangover 3 is coming out in 2 weeks after this. So that's clearly why he's there, including a couple cameos that we get a little bit later in the show. So, Mike, I think this might be the strongest episode that we get from Zach. What do you think?
I think that's a hot take. I think this is I liked all of them. I think I might say I loved all of them. That's why I want to nominate and vote for Zach in the Hall of Fame. But this one was the most different, so I guess that could be a good thing for you, Bill. I want to hear why. But this is probably my least favorite on the rewatch, but not in a bad way at all.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I think there's only really one that I'm not a huge fan of in this one, but I think there's a lot of really good stuff in this.
Let's start with the one you didn't like, and let's work our way up to the top.
I'm not a big fan of the Michael Jordan's wedding one. I think that really doesn't translate too well here. I don't know. What do you?
No, but I did, and this has nothing to do with Zach and Jason Sudeikis' coked up jugglers, which was Jay Farrow's Dikembe Mutombo was really great. I thought so. I will shout out to a lesser known impression of Jay Farrow's.
Yes,
who's now in the cast here. This is season 38, so we're kind of pivoting from that third golden era into the Taron Killam, Vanessa Bayer. We have a new Kate, 80, Tim Robinson, Cecily. So we have a completely kind of in the rebuild here. So bringing Zach back, took a season off after 2 in a row, and now we're plunking in Galifianakis into a kind of a new era just 2 years later.
Yeah, and John and I talked about that a lot last summer. Are they able to play with multiple hosts? And I think you do get to see that here, even though there are some holdovers from that first era that he was on. As you said, we get to see a lot of fresh faces that go on to tremendous success on SNL and beyond. So, yeah, I think, and to say the Michael Jordan's wedding sketch wasn't great, it's still better than a lot of other episodes, a lot of other sketches. So I don't hate it. I just think it's the weakest link in a pretty strong episode. So let's talk about the monologue again. We've done this twice already, but this is another good one too. Kind of does the same thing again, but that's fine. If you find your niche with monologues as a Walken did with his song and dance, why not do it a third time? So Mike, he pulls out the stops again with his one-liners and his work at the piano.
Yeah, he does back at the piano, and it's kind of a reset. And again, he's there. Let me talk about myself. No Hoobastank shout out this third time around. Almost wish he did to make it 3 in a row.
Right.
But this was, again, for me, I didn't write down the lines the same way as the first two, but this was, I literally rewatched right before we went on, because there's just so many of his, just the one-liner. And I think he does, I only do setups. He did a couple
yes.
of setting up a joke, and I don't do punchlines. Like he did the first 2 jokes, I think.
Yes.
I'd like to just talk about myself now. I'm very well read, and the other day I was lighting the bottom of a spoon with my Bic lighter. I only have setups, no punchlines.
Well, a couple of the really good lines that we get here are, "You look like the guy from The Hangover, no offense."
Yes, that was it.
Yeah. Charades, he played charades with the deaf couple, and they were amazing.
Yeah, they didn't do a lot of the sounds like
right. Yes.
touching the ear.
Yeah. And then he sits at the piano and says, "I like to stump Google by asking things like, how many Mexicans are in North Korea?"
And how many candles does Dave Navarro have?
Right.
14,000.
Yeah. And you'll never see in Braille this phrase, "if you see something, say something." So Yeah, there's some really good stuff here again. I think Zach kills it for a third time, 3 out of 3.
Absolutely. And I feel like a lot of these great hosts we've talked about on SNL Hall of Fame and elsewhere, there have been great hosts who have had kind of poor monologues or mediocre monologues, but have been excellent in sketches, either due to the writing or due to their performance. And so now we have Zach in his third and final episode, at least that we have right now at this recording, and 3 for 3 with like really strong monologues all around.
Yeah, exactly. So where would you like to go as far as the first sketch that we should talk about beyond the Jordan's wedding?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few, so please call them back. I'm going in show order, but I'm gonna skip ahead to the M&M store for me, because this is more of a classic host role. So I've been talking a lot about him kind of letting the show happen around him, and he's adding in the perfect ingredient to make a great sketch a classic and a good sketch great. Where this one is more of a classic. Zach Galifianakis is playing the red M&M at the M&M store. They call him Racist Jim. He's apologizing to all his coworkers and just never relents. You think there's going to be a second beat to this sketch? Normally, we want a second beat. In this case, we don't. We want him to keep going, and it gets funnier as it goes. So he's apologizing to Nasim for calling her the wrong type of Indian. She explains that she's Pakistani. And, you know, the jokes never stop with the apologies. And all of his apologies sound in earnest, but they make it worse every time.
Yes, the Nasim runner is the greatest part of this, in my opinion. I don't think that's really a hot take. I think the fact that he keeps calling back to her being an Indian, a Native American, if you will, and saying, how? And she goes, it just is. No, I'm saying hello. And then they just keep going back to it. I don't have any reservations. No offense. Powwow. Like there's after almost every person that he interacts with, he brings it back to Nasim, which I think is a pretty brilliant piece of writing.
Calls back to it every time, and the supporting cast is great. We have a Tim Robinson appearance,
right?
Apologizing for the gay jokes for 2 men who are like, "I'm not gay," and he keeps apologizing again for that. It was a little bit of what they did so well when Louis C.K. hosted. So they would do sketches where, and also maybe a little bit of like Keenan's character, a guy in the office that they all love, but in this case, they all like really don't like him and he's fired.
Yeah.
So this was a great one as far as just like your down the middle SNL host role that he really owned. But I can't wait to talk about Daryl's house. So let's go for it.
Let's do it. This was an incredible, talked about a runner in his first episode with Zach drives by the set. This one ups the game quite a bit.
Why, thank you, John. I made him myself.
Hey, if John Hamm is on the show, why isn't he here?
Because we have different schedules.
Hey, Marcus, just edit that part out, okay? I'm going to tell my joke now.
You look so happy, John, which is surprising. I always heard you were a mad man.
Insert a shot of Showtime at the Apollo of people laughing at the audience, okay? Okay, audience, huge laugh right there.
Thanks for stopping by, John.
Go?
Yes, go.
Hey, when's this going to be on? I want to tell my mom to watch it.
You're not going to be on. John Hamm is going to be on.
This is like a moment in SNL history, is the commitment to this sketch. And so you're going to see in this rundown, we skipped past a couple of the Game of Thrones game show. There's a classic Bill Hader hosted, 80 and Taryn there. We have the Jennifer Aniston lookalike contest. Ed Helms, Bradley Cooper come in as, the winners of the contest, and some great, classic Zach material. The M&M store we mentioned, and then we get this Daryl's house sketch a little later in the night, but there's the Michael Jordan's wedding sketch and a pre-tape. So to explain that, I feel like the rundown is super important because the faith they had in the payoff is everything to this sketch. If I played it to you back to back, it would still be funny. But the fact that in the rundown, they had it where it was, did a live sketch, did a pre-tape, did a musical performance of Monsters and Men, And then finally we get the second part. So the idea is local access TV. It's Daryl's house. It's his first time having company. He's shooting this tape of having company over with the hors d'oeuvres and the guests and shouting off set and saying, cut that and edit that in. And of course, we get Kenan coming in as quote unquote John Hamm. We'll also edit in John Hamm because our schedules don't line up. So they have Kenan come in and just be the stunt double for John Hamm to be edited in later. We have some laughs, not the strongest sketch that we'll see, but it's not important, Bill. So let you give the payoff here.
Yeah. So as I rewatched this, I said I was watching a lot of these with my daughter, who's 14, and we talk a lot on the SNN about being able to bring someone into SNL. She's been watching for a few years, but showing her older stuff like this and getting a payoff is such a feeling of joy. And we watched the first part that you just described so perfectly. And he keeps talking to the guy off camera. Now, what I want you to do here is I want you to cut this out, or I don't want you to show any rage as he throws the plate at Vanessa. There's a lot of great stuff. And I said, just wait, because she didn't really get what was going on as we were watching this. And when we got to the second one, and it's now edited, and you've got John Hamm, you've got that. He also mentions finding music that they could get. And
yes, I'll say the artist. You'll edit in the artist and play the music.
And who does he get, Mike? What classic artist does he get?
He gets the great Al Jolson.
And they
do have it playing under the dialogue.
Yes. And then all these really hacky cuts that even in 2010 or 2013 would have been considered like very amateurish, cutting to the plate where there was no food and then having a whole plate of food. But the best part is that he does get John Hamm, and the way they edit it, they have Kenan's hand still shaking Zach's hand while John is standing in the doorway. John comes in and is very friendly, and they sit there and talk about the hors d'oeuvres and stuff like that until they eventually cut to Zach standing in the background with his jacket off, his tie undone, realizing he's still on camera when he shouldn't have been on camera at all. What a tremendous, tremendous piece this was.
This is something that you might not want to see every week, but we don't get enough of.
Yeah.
So I'll start by saying that it doesn't matter if you're a diehard like us listening to SNL pods or you tune in once in a while, but to be a live, not in the studio, but to be a live television watcher and get that payoff is so satisfying. I know it's a risky move because that first part of it is the joke is just that he's kind of an incompetent guy in front of camera. So it's okay, we've seen these beats before. He's kind of awkward. So the payoff makes it all worth it. So I hope this is not a dying thing in the live TV medium to do this. I know we're talking about a sketch from 12 years ago, but it's so damn good, Bill. And having when I end, freeze and put the credits over my face.
Right.
So every moment that was mentioned in the first Daryl's house is now come to fruition, including, as you mentioned, real life John Hamm cutting the screen in half for their dialogue, including, as you said, Kenan's hand reaching into the second screen to so it's in this case, if you watch Daryl's House 2, it doesn't make any sense. So the payoff really has to have the first part of it, maybe like The Hangover 1 and 2.
Yes. And I think, it wasn't even really my era where the runners were a big thing. That was the Ebersol era. That was before my time. But I came up on Monty Python, and that was always a big part of every Monty Python episode, the way that they would bleed into each other. The Kids in the Hall, the same idea. And the fact that SNL doesn't do this virtually at all anymore. I think, we have this one, we have the Forte Closet Guy one, which really stand out in the modern era. And they're both so great. The fact that they don't bring it back at all in any form is really a shame. But maybe it has to go with who the host is. And that one, it was John Hamm. And this one got Zach Galifianakis. So you've got two incredible hosts, maybe finding the trust there is kind of key to that. But I love this so much. Going back and watching this was such a thrill. So yeah, we have anything else you want to touch on from this third episode, Mike, before we wrap things up and make your case?
No, I think that's where we should end is that. So if you don't remember it, please go back and find it, because the payoff is so worth it. And having, as Bill said, Zach can sell it. So talking about earlier about him, shaving his beard for the first episode, and I think it was the second one, right, Bill, that he shaved his head.
Yes.
And said at the good nights he had a mohawk and said, we cut the Mr. T sketch.
Right.
So he's not only willing to go there and commit to the bit on stage, off stage, but in this case, it's taking a risk that if we put this in the rundown, we have to make the 10-1. So we can't run long. So we had to squeeze in that pre-tape and go back to this same set, same costume, and with some interspersed stuff, of course, but is so terrific. So I think that's where we should end with the 3 episodes.
Yeah. So this is 12 years ago, as you said, and it's another one of those hosts that we love so much that for some reason we haven't gotten back. He's in that John Hamm, Anne Hathaway, Jack Black category of just fantastic 3-time host, not coming back for a very long time. Now, I will say, I think it was one of my favorite moments of the night. I'm sure it was one of yours, Mike. We did see him at SNL 50 during the Q&A with Tina and Amy. They make a joke about Keith Richards losing a scarf back in 1988, and there's Zach wearing it and, is indignant about it and just says, I'm just trying to sit here and wait for Kanye to perform. And it's such a great line.
Which is also a callback.
Yes.
To SNL 40.
Exactly.
So talk about a running joke. SNL 40, he was the next intro for the next montage after Kanye West and Sia performed. He's wearing the Sia wig.
Yes.
So even a little meta right there is him mentioning that Kanye was at SNL 40 and, shouting it on SNL 50 was pure Zach all the way. So also that's a strong case too, Bill, is that he's not only was big enough to be in SNL 40, but not hosting for 12 years now, and he's at the 50th.
So I have to ask this question. It's kind of one of those things that we always think about. Do you think there's a chance we see him come back and host anytime in the near future?
Normally, I would say no with a case like this, but I think that his hosting stints all just line up with his career. So I think Zach Galifianakis is still plenty recognized and plenty liked, but it's only about his work. So it's not about, we talk about that with SNL alums constantly, is why hasn't Anna or Bobby hosted, or, Vanessa Bayer or somebody? It's like, it's not that they wouldn't be great or they don't want them. It's that they have to have a reason for it. So with Zach Galifianakis, if he has a movie coming out, then of course he'd host. It's just about the nature of the comedy film right now in the 2020s.
So you're telling me that you want a Hangover 4? Is that what I'm hearing?
I mean, honestly, Bill, the way the landscape is right now, I'm sure a Hangover 4 would do better than an original better comedy.
You're not joking. So, Mike, this was great. We've talked about some incredible work that Zach was able to do over 3 different hosting gigs. Here's your chance. Why should voters, fans, and the folks around the water cooler vote for Zach Galifianakis for the Hall of Fame?
Well, as always, Bill, have to start with the numbers. I'm the host of By the Numbers. He's one of 72 hosts in SNL history to host 3 times. So right away, you get to narrow down the pool. So you can pick one episode. I'm sure you guys have talked about hosts who've done one great episode. Talk about Betty White or Grodin or somebody that's Richard Pryor, people who have done incredible work that stand the test of time with one episode. So he's done 3. He didn't miss. All 3 episodes are very rewatchable. And sometimes SNL is great, but the rewatchability is not as great. So if you weren't there at the time, I'm sorry, but it doesn't translate as much. There are some comedy films like that as well. His due, at least right now in 2025, they're very rewatchable. I think he brings the aspect of a host that we all want. So if you ask an SNL fan, who is the best kind of host? Don't mention any examples. Just, what's the qualities? What's the characteristics? He has all of them. He has his own brand. So he brings that, infuses it into the sketches and the cast. He also has great monologues where are his time to shine without the cast, and is willing to play ball in this playground of SNL and not be the centerpiece. We see that with the best hosts and the worst hosts that have a sketch just kind of centered around them. Let's do a talk show and make them the centerpiece, and the writers will punch it up with great jokes. You can't lose, right? So when we get that, it's great. But most of the time with Zach's episodes, the sketches are not like that. So we have the two runners with the digital short carrying over into the Kathy Lee and Hoda live sketch, and then the Daryl's House sketch, which become the third category in my voting, which is like SNL lore, SNL legend, which I think is what makes you a Hall of Famer. Because look at sports, which we always make the comparisons to on this show, and whether or not they're worthy of the hall, is those moments are the ones that carry you to the finish line. It's not just the great work on and off the set.
Beedly-doo. So there's that. Mike Murray, stat guru, building a strong case for Mr. Zach Galifianakis to enter the Hall of Fame between two other Hall of Famers. So there's that. I hope you enjoyed Mike's take on things. If you've got a disagreement, send me an email, the SNL Hall of Fame at gmail.com. I read them all and I do reply. So get cracking. Voting will occur again this year. I will have the date for you next week. It has changed a little bit, seeing as we took a hiatus about 2 weeks ago, and we're back on track now. But the finale will be likely pushed back for a week, and voting will be pushed back for a week as well. But I would like to underscore once again just how important this ballot is going to be. You have an unlimited number that you can cast. So we can finish this show up with a bang and perhaps even beat season 3 with, I think there was 9 or 10 entrants in season 3. So that's pretty bonkers. That's a big haul. Maybe the same will be true with season 7. We will have to find out. But before we go any further, I would be remiss not to play you a sketch to really drive home the point that Galifianakis deserves a spot in the hall. So let's get to that right now.
All right, listen up, team. Before we open up the store today, I want to huddle up. Can everybody huddle up for me, please? Okay. Jim, you want to come out here really quick? Okay. Now, come on in. Now, our new greeter, Jim, here had a real rough first day yesterday, okay? I mean, that goes without saying, right, Jim?
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Now, he said some things that were very offensive, but he's asked for a chance to apologize, so we're going to let him. Jim, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you. So, look, there was a lot of name calling yesterday. I know you didn't like the names I called you, and I certainly didn't like the names that you called me, like Racist Jim and Jim the Bigot. Mm-hmm. So I want to apologize to each of you individually and ask for your forgiveness. First off, Noreen, I know that all day I continuously referred to you as the wrong type of Indian. But I want to get it right. Please tell me one last time which kind you are, and I swear I'll never ask again.
I'm Pakistani.
And is that the name of your tribe, or?
It's a country.
How?
It just is.
No, I was saying hello.
No, come on. Let's stay focused. Let's stay focused, Jim, okay? Come on, push through.
Eddie, my dear Mexican friend, let's see. Me Espanol no es bueno?
No, I speak English.
Oh, thank God. Okay, good. So look, listen, I called you dirty a lot yesterday, and didn't I?
You did.
Okay. And yet, I'm a total slob. I mean, maybe I don't deserve to be in this country either.
I was born in Minnesota, racist Jim.
And we're back to name calling. See, this is what I'm talking about.
I understand. Please, just come on, Jim. We gotta keep it going. Come on.
Okay, moving on. I definitely should apologize to our gays. Gentlemen, the thought of what you guys do really makes me sad. And I know I made that abundantly clear, often through song. But then I got home and I thought, well, my wife is really ugly. Hell, she might as well be a dude. So maybe we ain't that different, you know? Why don't we just bury the hatchet? No offense. And guys, gays, let me be the first to say I support whatever you want to do as long as it's behind closed doors. We're not gay.
Thank you.
But it's entirely possible that I owe the biggest apology to Black Joe.
It's just Joe. There are no other Joes at work here. I mean, even if there were, you don't...
You were certainly the recipient of some of my low moments in that 3-hour shift. I don't know what I feel worse about, how often I asked to touch your hair, or when I pointed to that brown M&M and yelled, "Hey, look, everyone, it's Black Joe."
That one actually kind of made me laugh.
I wasn't finished with my list. Please don't talk over me. This is not a movie theater. Where was I? All right. You also seemed offended at my many attempts to connect with you through music. Swing low.
You son of a bitch. Come on.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, we should wrap up this powwow. I am so sorry. And finally, there was Christina. You probably don't remember Christina, but yesterday I grabbed your boob pretty hard in the break room while squeezing an air horn.
I remember racist Jim.
See, but you gotta admit, there's nothing racist about that exchange whatsoever, right?
Yeah, except that you said that my butt was Puerto Rican, but that my boobs didn't get the memo.
Yeah. Okay. We should open up the store. Jim, you're obviously fired, okay?
Why? Are you positive about this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
You have no reservations? Again, I am so sorry.
It's time. It's all right. Yeah, it's time to go,
Well,
Jim.
tell
Come
me
on.
this. Am I eligible for unemployment, or is that just for you-know-who?
Okay. Come on, let's go. Come on. Let's go. All right, let's sell some.
Wow. Very funny stuff. Pretty edgy for SNL, I would say. I used to watch the show Bizarre, and they would do a sketch almost every episode that was similar to that. But yeah, I would say that's a clever way around, joke writing for a racist character that you don't have to like. So there's that. Galifianakis pulls it off with a plume, and I think a plume is a feather that I use to write. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Season 7 is a crapshoot. Normally, I'm pretty good at guessing if you're going to get in or not. But like I say, crapshoot city. So I guess we just need to wait and see and vote and then wait and see. That is all I have for you this week. Next week, we'll be joined by Andy Hoagland, who is going to nominate Eminem in the musical guest category. So that should be really interesting to give a listen to. And of course, this coming Thursday, we've got the water cooler where we'll take a deeper dive into this episode and really try and look at the case for Galifianakis. So tune in for that. And one other favor. On your way out, as you pass the Weekend Update exhibit, turn out the lights, because the SNL Hall of Fame is now closed.
Thanks for listening to the SNL Hall of Fame podcast. Make sure to rate, review, share, and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on social media at SNLHOF. This is Kirk Lane saying, this is Kirk Lane saying, see you next week.
Podcasts and such.
At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 300 programs at asuonline.asu.edu.